back to House Money. The holiday season quickly approaching, and so is the legalization of marijuana. Now, what do these two things have in common? Well, as more people move into condos, they need to know the rules governing the Yuletide cheer and other activities. Earlier, I spoke with Denise Lash. She's founder of Lash Condo Law. We received a number of interesting questions people have about rules and rights when they live in a condo. Have a listen. We got 5 questions we want to go through in terms of the kind of things you're hearing from people who live in condos. The first one is about the holiday season, holiday decorations. We have this question. I'm going to string up some Christmas lights on my balcony. I assume that I can do that.
Well, holiday decorations are great, not just for the Christmas season, but also for Halloween. Before you do anything, you have to review your condominium documents. Oftentimes there are restrictions, sometimes prohibitions. You can't put your wreath on your door. You can't put Christmas lights on your balcony. And the reason being, those are common elements owned by everybody in the community, not just you.
It's interesting, too, that perhaps if you even are allowed to put Christmas lights out, some people have a problem with duration. They don't want to see them there in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes there are rules that permit it, but it's restricted to perhaps 4 weeks during the Christmas season and not beyond that. So you really need to know before you put anything outside of your unit boundaries that you know what the rules are.
I've often thought about these condo rules being about what a person can see from the street. Now, within your own condo, it sounds like you can do whatever you want, but have you ever heard anyone taking issue with the fact that they could see within the condo and they thought the decorations were a little over the top, or is that pretty much your domain?
Well, it depends. If it's within the unit boundaries and you're interfering with other people, or if you have something in the inside of your unit where you have purple blinds, for example, that's something that you may not be able to have. And that's, again, in your rules or in your declaration.
Now, here's a hot button topic across the country. Cities are trying to grapple with this. Short-term rentals. The question is, I'm leaving on holidays. I'm going to list my suite on Airbnb. Anything I need to know?
Well, we're busy. As a law firm, we're dealing with these issues almost every week. And of course, the first thing you need to do if you're even thinking about short-term renting is there are buildings that prohibit it altogether. You can't do it and don't do it. And then there are buildings that allow it. And if they do allow it, there are rules. There are certain steps you have to take. For example, there's something called friendly buildings that Airbnb is doing now. It means you have to register, not just on Airbnb, but with your condominium corporation.
Often people just think, okay, well, there's some rules in place. I'm just going to break them. What can they do to me? What can they do to me?
What they can do is get the lawyers involved, and if we get involved, you're going to be charged about $500 a letter. And it can be letter after letter, and then eventually a court proceeding. So you better be careful.
Okay, parking obviously is coveted in a lot of condos, particularly in big urban centers. Here's the question on that front. I just got a motorcycle and I have room in my parking spot for the motorcycle and the car. I just received a letter from management to move my motorcycle out of my spot. I'm just going to ignore that notice.
Well, again, what do the documents say? Oftentimes, what it says in the documents is that you can park one vehicle in your parking spot. There may be a tandem spot, or you may have an unusual condominium that allows a motorcycle with your car. But usually it doesn't. So you better not do it, because if you do it, there are going to be costs. And the costs are the legal fees.
We talk about parking spots, and we were talking about Airbnb. It makes me think that some people might want to actually rent out their parking spots if they don't have their own car. I imagine you need to look up the rules for that too. Exactly,
because oftentimes there are restrictions that, yes, you can rent it out, but it has to be to a resident in the building, not outside users. And good reason, you know, the security of the building and your community.
Now, working from home, the home office. This person says, I have my home office out of my suite. I have the odd courier that does delivery, and some clients visit now and again. I know that the suite is residential. Do I have to worry about having my business out of that suite?
A lot of people these days have their home offices. What you do have to look to see what your documentation says. There are live-work units, and you may be permitted. There's also zoning, and your condominium declaration will say whether or not you can have this alternative use to residential. Be careful.
Now, here's a big one. The times are definitely a-changing. Marijuana. I need to smoke marijuana for health reasons. My neighbor keeps complaining. I go onto the balcony, so don't know why there are complaints. I should be allowed to smoke, shouldn't I?
You know what? It's a very big topic, and we're getting a lot of calls from managers and directors what kind of accommodation do we need to make? There are people right now that are smoking for health reasons. That's fine. They could smoke in their unit as long as it doesn't interfere with their neighbors. As soon as you go onto the common elements, the balcony, even though it's exclusive to them, it's still a common element, and the condominium corporation can place restrictions, and they will if it's a nuisance to others. If there's somebody who's sitting next door or up above or below, the smoke penetrates or goes on to their area, so that can be prevented. So no, you can't just do what you want and smoke marijuana on your balcony.
Now, right now, we're talking about medical marijuana. Next summer, we're more than likely going to be talking about recreational marijuana. How difficult will that be from your point of view as a lawyer who deals with these issues and trying to field these complaints?
It will be the same as cigarette smoking, and we deal with people that smoke on their balconies. Condominium corporations are now passing rules to prevent that sort of thing. The other issue is cigarette butts. Major, major problem in condominiums, not knowing who the culprit is that's throwing those butts. So a lot of condominium corporations are putting up cameras now. They'll figure out who's not complying, and who's doing that. So we don't expect that much more in terms of marijuana. People continue to break the rules.
Oh, it's fascinating stuff. Thanks for your time, Denise.
Thank you.
That was Denise Lash, founder of Lash Condo Law. Still ahead, housing can be expensive even if you're well-to-do. Imagine you're at risk of being homeless. We're going to tell you about a project in Hamilton that's hoping to help women at risk.